All right, welcome back, everyone. Just like I said, I wanted to do a video clarifying an idea that's as new information has come forth to me on the non-binary thing. So, a long time ago, I made these two videos that are called the Crux of the non-binary argument. And I suppose I should leave a link to those in the description below this video, but those I'm I've said a long time ago, this is why I don't take videos down. I like to see, I like for people to be able to see like how I've grown, how things change, the process of um if I change my position on something, why, how, that kind of stuff. But also in those videos, I still agree with what I said in there, but that's based off of a different definition of gender. That's basing gender off of the idea that gender and sex are the same thing. The definition for the gender that was given to me, um, they Cassandra, she told me that they don't see gender as meaning the same thing as sex. Is your biological sex, male and female. And I said, so what is gender? And for lack of better words, the I think the easiest way to explain what they mean, what the non-binary people mean when they say gender, is that they are talking about masculine and feminine energy. So it's basically based off of how you present yourself societally, how you present yourself in behavior as masculine or feminine. And it's like, okay, so if gender is how you present yourself behaviorally in society between masculine and feminine, then I'd have to say that I hate to be the bearer of bad news for the non-binary people, but that's everyone. Everyone in the world has masculine and feminine traits, especially if you're talking about behaviorally, because a lot of what we assign in society, in culture, as masculine or as feminine are societal constructs. Now, there are biological sex traits that are behavioral. So there are behaviors that are tied directly to your biological sex. Those do exist. But most of what we consider to be masculine or feminine in behavior is societally produced. Those are societal constructs. Like a guy crossing his legs at the knees instead of resting his ankle on his knee, that's perceived by a large group of, not everyone does. That's what I mean. This is very subjective. But a lot of people perceive that as being feminine. So what I was thinking in the first place is that I've never made that distinction. I've always lived with the notion, with the thought that that everybody exhibits masculine and feminine traits. I've never thought of people in that sort of term, and I think everyone exists on a spectrum between masculine and feminine. I think everybody has masculine and feminine traits, and so absolutely there is a scale between masculine and feminine, and I don't know that anyone can say that they're 100% masculine in societal behavior or 100% feminine in societal behavior. So to me, I don't know that I can necessarily agree with the non-binary statement, just because of the sense that I'm sort of a gender abolitionist in that sense. I don't really think that it exists on that level, that these are just a bunch of things that society has made up. So like an example would, like in the gay community, there's a lot of guys in the gay community that are perceivably very feminine. They walk around with like a, maybe like a purse or a man bag. They used to call them that. Um, they might have like a lisp, or what they call a feminine voice. What you're calling a feminine voice, again, that's subjective. That's a societal construct. But they'll look at them and they'll say, well, it's very obvious that he's gay because he's very effeminate, he's not very masculine, etc., etc. And I would tell these people, it's like, what you're perceiving as being feminine, isn't that the entirety of that person. Is that they do have traits that you would call, quote unquote, masculine. They're just not displaying them to you at the moment, but they do have them. They're not displaying them. And same thing goes in the gay community with like lesbians. The butch lesbian. It's just like, well, uh, yeah, I mean, societally, according to societal standards, they're portraying themselves as masculine, and I'm pretty sure, like, this is behavioral science type stuff. This is societal stuff. This isn't something that you're going to see in nature. Like, I'm not going to, like, no other species of female is going to gravitate towards the color pink. We say that pink is a feminine color because we as a society or as a culture have decided that. That's in our heads. That's not natural. That's something that exists up here. That's subjective. Um, the same with like the way that we talk, our mannerisms and stuff like that. I'm not saying that biological sex traits don't exist. They absolutely do, but the majority of what we are calling in behavior masculine and feminine are entirely social constructs created by us. We came up with the idea of dresses, purses, lipstick, eyeliner, and high heels, and um, leather chaps, shit kickers, and things like that. A male who is emotional, being emotional is not masculine or feminine. It's just being human. Like, being alive, you're and being human, you're going to have emotions. Society teaching men not to express their emotions is something that happens, but not every male um, is afraid of expressing their emotions, and not every male that expresses their emotions is a homosexual. Not every male that expresses their emotions is trans. Not every male that expresses their emotions perceives themselves as non-binary or gender fluid or something. They're just an individual, and part of their individual personality and how they express themselves to the world is that they are not afraid to express emotions. It's just as simple as that. So to me, what the non-binary people are essentially saying is they're finding a spot somewhere in that spectrum between masculinity and femininity, and they're trying to put a label on that particular spot. And I've just never seen a need to do that. I've never really thought of people in terms of varying levels and degrees of masculinity and femininity according to societal behavioral standards. I've just considered it, or looked at people as being expressive and individuality. And I personally think it's a good thing that society is getting better at teaching males to be more emotionally expressive. And I don't know that a female being aggressive is masculine or feminine either. If we went back in time to the to when people were wild, feral, when like thousands of years ago, when we were in a tribe, being in hunter gatherer days, I would expect a female to be extremely aggressive because self-defense. I mean, we don't make that distinction with other species. I mean, like, if you're in the African plains and you run into a female lion, you're not going to go, "Oh, thank goodness it's a female. They're not as aggressive." No, it doesn't matter if it's going to be a female or a male lion. You're going to probably be fucking terrified. In other species, you can't just look at a guinea pig and go, that's a female because it's behaving like a female guinea pig, or that's a male guinea pig because it's behaving like a male guinea pig. No, you have to pick the guinea pig up and look between its legs to find out if it's a male or a female. Because other than that, there's no way to know. Well, I mean, you could put them in a cage together, and I mean, obviously the male's going to try to mount the female, and then you'll know. But other than that, no, like just looking at them, you can't tell. You have to actually look at their genitals to tell. And it's that way with many species. I mean, cats, you typically can't tell if a cat is male or female just by looking at them and looking at their behavior. You have to look between their legs. Same with dogs. So a lot of, and this is why behavioral science, like social psychology, it's considered a soft science, not a hard science. Um, and like I said, that's not something that I've really looked at people. I've never looked at people in a sense of behaviorally, does this person present themselves as masculine or feminine? I've never really cared. I've really just kind of ran with the notion that everybody embodies both feminine and masculine traits, females and males alike. And this isn't about being homosexual, bisexual, or heterosexual either. It has nothing to do with that. I've seen what society calls feminine, a feminine male, and they've ended up being straight, being heterosexual. So I don't even think it has anything to do with that. I think literally everyone just has feminine and masculine traits because, as I said, these are societally constructed. And society for a long time, like I've pointed out, has taught men to not be emotional or not express their emotions. And I'm glad that society is kind of doing away with that, and we've started teaching males that it's okay to be emotionally expressive, and that's actually psychologically more healthy than suppressing your emotions. I mean, you can really tell, like, when I mean, men cannot suppress their emotions when something tragic happens. Like, pretty much anyone will break down in tears if their child dies. It doesn't matter how masculine or how feminine you are. It doesn't matter. You're probably going to cry because that's an extremely tragic and emotionally charged event to happen. So everyone, from my perspective, has masculine and feminine traits, and I've never cared. I've never given a shit. I have never fucking cared. And so the non-binary argument then turns into, well, I exist on a spectrum between masculine and feminine behavioral traits. And they're basically, like I said, they're finding a spot in that spectrum and they're wanting to put a label on it. And my question to that is why? Why do you need to put a label on your individual way of expressing yourself between masculine and feminine behaviors? Why do you need to do that? I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't find it like horrible. I don't think it's a I don't think it's degrading to society, but it's like why does it matter? Like why should anyone care if you're a heterosexual male but you have a lot of feminine behavioral traits as far as society is concerned? Why does that matter? Like seriously, why should anyone care? I didn't think people did care. I mean, honestly, to me, that's just part of the world that we live in. That's just part of life. Uh, So no, I really I think it's interesting that this these the non-binary people, they're saying that it's an issue, and it's like I've never known it to be an issue. I've never really cared. I've never really felt the need to put a label on it. I've always thought, like, let a person be themselves, let them express themselves individualistically, and respect them for their individuality. I'm somebody who's advocated for individual expression and being unique and strange. I mean, that's part of the whole, like, that's part of the goth counterculture is to be as strange and like eccentric as you can, to revel in, to revel in that and be proud of being different and not succumbing to the norm. So to put a label on each individual little way of, like, variation between masculine and feminine behavioral traits seems like a really strange thing to me. Like, why do you feel the need to do that? um I don't think people really care. At least not from my perspective. I've never really cared. And that's always been a thing. I mean, so when I first was introduced to the non-binary argument, to the non-binary people, no one had explained to me that they were talking about masculine and feminine behavior, like in how they present themselves to society. So you see this person with like chest hair and a beard, wearing lipstick and women's clothes, and they're like, I'm non-binary, um, gender queer, this, that, gender fluid, blah 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 blah. Um, I I literally thought, because from my perspective, gender and sex were interchangeable, that gender was just another way of saying, biologically, what is between your, what are you? Like, and that's just male or female. So, like, if you were to ask me, for instance, what does it mean to be a man? I'd say, well, it means that you have a penis and a pair of testicles between your legs and probably a little bit more body hair because you have a large amount of testosterone. Now, Cassandra did ask me that, she asked me, well, what about trans people? And I think that trans people, they should be able to identify as the sex that they want to be seen as. I do think that there are situations where they need to be more forthcoming about being trans. Like in a medical situation, it's important for a doctor to know especially if you're going to go through surgery, it's important for them to know what your biological sex is and not what you identify as. Because if you're on something like HRT, that's going to mess with like blood pressure. If you're dealing with drugs that have to do with heart rate, blood pressure, blood clotting, and stuff like that, knowing that you are on HRT is very, very important information, because you're talking about possibly being given a drug that clashes with HRT. So it's not about not recognizing the sex or gender that you identify as. It's about understanding that this person could be on HRT and that could create complications medically with this medication or this medical procedure or something like that. So it's for safety reasons. And also, I think for identification purposes, like it should be noted somewhere, like let's say you live in one state and you end up missing and your bones are found in another state. Well, guess what? The bones that they find, let's say that you were biologically born as a male, they're they're going to find male bones. They're not going to find the bones of a female. HRT doesn't change your skeletal structure. So they're going to find the skeletal remains of a male, and the state that they find your bones in, they're going to say, well, we have the bones of a male. Do you have a missing male? And the state that you came from is going to say, well, we have a missing female. That maybe they'll be able to connect the dots, but in case they don't, I think it should be on file somewhere that you were trans, so that they know that if you present yourself as if you identify as a female and you've gone through transition, and you're seen as a female, then the people trying to find your killer are going to know that they're going to be looking for male bones, and I think you get the point on that. But as far as like non-binary, like if they're not wanting to transition biological sex like male to female, but they're in this like flow between masculine and feminine behavior, that's just never really mattered to me, and I've just always assumed nobody cared. I guess I guess there are people that care about that, and they think that men should behave like a man, whatever that is, and women should behave like a woman, whatever that is. I mean, when it comes to natural, I don't know naturally what behaving like a male or a female is. And like I said, I am fully well aware that there are biological behavioral traits of males and females, but the vast majority of what we call masculine and feminine behaviors are societal constructs. They are not things that exist in nature. So looking at it from that perspective, it's really weird when somebody tells you that when somebody who's a male comes up and says, "Oh, I'm non-binary," and they have like this grocery list of things that they identify as, because they sometimes they're more masculine, sometimes they're more feminine, sometimes they're in between. It's like, well, why do you have to tell me that? Like I'm pretty sure I can get to know you and I'll get the gist of that pretty quick. And it just seems like an unnecessary thing to do. I mean, it's not problematic to do it. It just seems unnecessary. It seems like you're going through a lot of work to create a box, to create a label, and I don't think that label is entirely necessary. It's like I'm not gonna judge you because you are societally perceivably, feminine, or societally perceivably masculine, or whatever. That's completely irrelevant to me. So with this new definition of gender, I had I have to clarify that I don't have a problem with non-binary people in that sense. Now, I think it is weird to demand society um, pay homage to that, because, like I said, it should be something that's irrelevant. I mean, not irrelevant in the sense of you are, like, as a non-binary person, that you are invalidated. No, 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 you're validated, you're fine. It's just I'm telling you, I don't think anyone cares that you exist on a spectrum between masculinity and femininity. I don't think anyone cares. Maybe there are people out there that care, but fuck them. Express yourself however you like. Just be you. Be you, and do express yourself however you feel comfortable. There's no need to appease anyone in what they think. Like, if you're a female, and society says that you're you have masculine traits, who cares? I don't think that should be indicative of being transsexual. I don't think it should be indicative of masculinity or feminine. It shouldn't matter. It should just be who you are. That's your individual personal characteristics. Period. So I would be in favor of abolishing this idea of gender, that men have to behave what society calls masculine, and females have to behave what society calls feminine. I don't think that needs to happen. I think that there's just no harm in presenting yourself however you feel comfortable presenting yourself. Um, it's weird to me that there's a group of people out there that has to put a label on it. I don't think you need a label on it. I really don't think you need a label. You can if you want, but I think I don't think it's necessary. So I'm going to stop there. I hope I've articulated this correctly. I feel like I haven't. Um, but yeah, I'm going to end it there.